Why don't we use your chart, Eric?
We have to draw it out.
You got to draw it for us.
Alright. I should physically draw it or just tell it?
No, physically draw it.
Alright.
Basically, get your butt up here.
Okay. Where should I draw it?
Try. There's a white thing there.
Squares down there.
North, south, east, west? Which kundali should I?
For the moment, go north.
When I started drawing it, there was Eric's chart. We're
Yeah.
going to draw Eric's chart.
And
Like a while
I
ago.
draw it just like this.
How do you erase from this thing?
Linda.
Find something. So now you guys, when you look at this,
They have Linda.
now, but draw it just like this, Eric. This is data. With the with the charakaras, with the degrees, with this information in that order.
Right. I don't necessarily know all that.
You got a computer.
I don't. Not that has
Give
JH on
Amrita
it.
your birth information.
Yeah.
She can punch it out.
My computer is downloading Windows right now.
But now, if you guys look, Luna G.
We.
So now you see, like, this is what I read. Okay? And you see right here, Vara, Sunday, Tithi, Krishna Panchami, Jupiter, 37% left.
Oh.
Nakshatra, Kritika, ruled by Sun. Yoga, Vajra, ruled by Moon. Karna, Taitula, ruled by Mercury. Hora Lord is Mercury. Right there. Everything that we just talked about, it's sitting right there on the chart before we look at it. Right there, right there. You know what I mean? It's a crucial part of being right next to the chart, the Panchanga. With that percentage right there. So for your case, there should be that percentage right there on your chart. So when I draw your chart, I don't have to see, what percent is he? It's just like, bam, if he's in the 3rd percent or 2nd percent.
Can you see that on your chart?
72.52%
Left.
So that's the last.
That's what's left, so he's in the beginning section.
Oh.
of the
Oh,
Krishna
that
tradition.
means it's Krishna, right?
Okay. Interpretation. Red. Planets in red, Baba. Okay, so interpretation. Om Jum Sa Vyam Vyasa Deva Sajum Om. So everything that we've done so far is science. All the strength calculations, what the houses mean, it's all science. But when we get into interpreting a chart, it's not science. It's an art. Okay? Knowing what the herbs are is a science. Knowing how to design the formula just right to give to the person is an art. Knowing a few yoga poses is a science. Knowing what they do, it's a science. Knowing how to put them together in a flow that feels good is an art. So we're getting into the part that it's art. Some people are so good at everything else we've talked about, and they're terrible at interpretation.
Mm. Can you be terrible at the science part and good at the art part?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the stronger your science is, the more you have to work. It's the stronger your science is, the more colors you have in your palette. The more room you have to work with and make things and create. So, and here I write, I don't know how many times I've heard students say to Sanjay, they say, please, teach us how to interpret, because he's always teaching technique, science, science aspect. And they're always, please teach us, how to interpret. And I swear that every time that he agrees to teach how to interpret the chart, He'll give sometimes an hour, sometimes 6 hour, lecture on it. It's never been the same. He's always, we teach this, he'll teach a full system of how to interpret the chart. And then someone else, a month or two later says, teach us how to interpret. He says, okay. And he teaches them a full system that has nothing to do with the one he did before.
And it's always like, this is the most important thing.
Every time.
This is the most... yeah.
Does anyone have JH? I can look at these degrees and stuff.
I do, yeah.
But it's an important concept to understand.
It's like one of those Nasruddin
Can't pull it.
stories, teaching
The-
stories in Sufism.
Ah.
There's Nasruddin.
Well, as I said, we're getting to the art part. So things get like a little slippery here because it's art.
Oh, sure.
It's not the science anymore where we say it's this many degrees, you subtract this much from this calculation, and this is what you get. When it's in 0 to 1 degrees, it's Sankranti, and it'll destroy those houses. That's science. Now we start to be like, okay, so it's destroying that house. What's that mean for you? How does that affect your life? What is that? It gets, we got, and how do I say what this is doing to your life and affecting your life? So this right here, all the different methods that I've heard Sanjay say, this is my own reality that I've put together from it. That when I look at a chart, this is how I look at it. Now, an important thing is, even though this is a list here, every reading's a little different. Like I said, sometimes you get the person, they'll come, they say, I'm having marriage problems. Please, can you look at my chart and help me? Other times they say, I want a reading. Here's my chart. Tell me what's going on. They don't tell you anything. Sometimes, the person says, well, could we talk about this? Could we talk about that? Other times they're on a phone, they call you up for a reading and you don't know what's going. So there's different situations, you got to be flexible in the whole reading, everything changes. Which techniques you're using first and last, and sometimes you have a chart, the person says, here's my chart, I'll come over tomorrow, let's talk about it. And you have all night to study it. Other times the person, you're on a train, and they pull out, and it's some big, lawyer, he pulls out his chart and says, what do you see? And right there, you look at it, it's like, so what do you think? And that's it, you got to start talking, So every time it's a little bit different. What I'm going to do is, if you have a chart and you have all the freedom in the world to really look at it and get what's going on, and you can talk about it whenever you're ready to talk about it. So that's the steps we're going to be taking. When you get into other situations, you got to start feeling around for what you can drop and what you can't drop. I'm kind of going in an order of importance, but it's going to change, The second concept that you have to remember is that, now this is, I give 14 points to look at. And I give them in an order. Look at this, then look at that, then look at this. But what happens is, after you start getting better, you start getting faster. And so instead of looking at these 3 things as separate things, all of a sudden you look at the chart and you see them all at the same time. All these techniques are about 3 or 4 techniques to me. To Sanjay, there are maybe 1 or 2 techniques. When he looks at a chart, he sees so many things so fast. Because that's how his mind is trained to look, take the information in, read it, processes it, and begin. It's so instantaneous. He can look at a chart, and like these Panchanga doshas that we did, he looks at the degree of the planets and the Panchanga, and he knows, and he looked at the chart, he looked at that, and he's ready to do the reading. He knows whether you have a dosha, he knows what areas have problems, he knows what they're doing in the chart, he's ready, This is something that we would spend an hour studying, checking, making sure. So it takes time. Soon, if we practice, we get faster and faster. So let's see, here I say, it is not a linear process when looking at a chart. It is a multi-dimensional, multitasking, analyzing process. But right now we're going to be very linear with it so that we can have a mental structure. But just remember, it's not linear. Even though we're making it linear right now. My Virgo is making it linear. But it's actually in the ocean, in a circle. So we start with, first thing, when the chart comes, we know it's coming. We start with the Ganesh mantra, a Surya mantra, and the Parampara mantra, or the Guru mantra. And here I just list the 14 things, and then the rest of the article goes into it. So we'll just read through the 14 things. The second thing is we analyze the Lagna and the Lagnesh, its placement and situation. 3, the planets and houses, and we just quickly look at them. We don't interpret them just yet. At the beginning level, when you look at a chart, you just say, oh, Mercury is in the 8th house, Venus is in the 7th house, Jupiter is in the 4th house. You just look so you know where they are. You don't say, well, when Jupiter's in the 4th house, that means, and start going farther. Your first look at the chart, you just got to get an idea of Jupiter is there. This is there. The Lagnesh is going here. You got to just get situated with the situation before you even start interpreting more. Because if you start interpreting too much, you start going into a certain area and then you start getting blinded by other things that you should have looked at that you didn't look at. So first, just take the chart into the mind. 4, look at planet conjunctions and start analyzing. We did that whole class on conjunctions where everything was in a quarter of the chart, or the Mahapurusha yogas, or the 9th Lord and the 4th Lord conjunct. So we start looking at what's together in the chart. Then we look at the moon's nakshatra to see the color, the view point that things are going through. Then 6, we look at the Atmakaraka and the Aruda Lagna. 7.
Should I write Arudapada?
Yeah.
All of them?
Yeah. You want to go with a different color?
Yeah, sure.
7. Then we look for curses and blessings. We start looking at aspects happening in the chart. 7. We look at the Panchanga and we analyze the Panchanga. Like we just did. Then that was 8. Then 9, we check the dashas. See which dashas are we going to use in this chart. Which is the 7th, is the Lagna in the 7th Lord? Is the 7th Lord in the Lagna? Are we going to use a special dasha for this chart? We calculate what dashas is this chart asking to be used, and then we check the dashas. Then we look at the Navamsha in its trines. Then we make a few statements to confirm the chart and to rectify it to see if it's correct or not. Then we assess the issues of the native from the information we scanned, and then we begin using more specific techniques. And then, if we wish to start talking to the person, we begin telling the native of everything that we've seen in the chart. But first we've looked at all these factors. Okay? And 14, we give them some remedies. And I put that as a... Navamsha. Every one of these has Navamsha and Ashtaka-varga. Can we... Huh?
That's not part of your...
Oh, it is. When we go into it. That's part of... I leave that into the dashas.
Oh.
Remember how we learned Ashtaka-varga? Remember when we learned it?
Yes, I do.
We studied it in the weekend that we did dashas.
Yes.
We did dashas, then we looked at the transits relative to the dashas. And with those transits, we used the Ashtaka-varga to see how strong those transits were. And if we look at Parashara, he does dashas, then he does Ashtaka-varga. That's the order that Parashara is going. So I just said find the right dasha. When we go into it more, we'll talk about Ashtaka-varga. That's my short list. What? It's too... What was that?
It's a short list.
That's my short list.
How many are on your long list?
108.
Which AV are you using? Sarva.
What was I reading? I was reading something from the notes about 16 being this spiritual auspicious number. I think is you can make a case for every number being a spiritual number.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway,
That's
and
about
14. You chose 14 because out of 108 because
14
is
lokas.
a spiritual number, right?
Yeah. You have 7... You were just talking about the chakras.
Uh-huh.
So you have 7 chakras from the root chakra up. Those are the 7 heavens. When they talk about being in 7th heaven, they're talking about the crown chakra.
And then there's 7 hells.
And there's 7 hells that are in the thighs and the knee and the ankle and the middle of the foot and the big toe, like this.
Not really 7 hells. There's one hell below the bottom of your feet.
No, there's 7 patalas.
The patalas aren't hell. If you read the descriptions in the Puranas about patalas, they're not hells.
There's 7 lower realms.
Some of them are beautiful realms with jewels.
There's 7 lower
it's
realms.
a high realm for people who live at the knee level. The anus is a real spiritual place.
Sure. But so the 14 lokas, the 14 planes of existence. And so we have 14 techniques here.
I knew it.
But you see, 14 and 16 are very connected. If you look at the vowels in the Sanskrit alphabet, how many vowels are there? She's counting on her fingers. Just leave it there.
16.
Yeah, behind me.
16?
16. Okay.
Should have known that off the top of my head.
And there are 16 petals in the throat chakra that those 16 are connected to. So there's 16, but the Visarga and Anuswara, the Ang and Aha, are considered, what's the Sanskrit word for them? They are... but of the vowels, they each have their different names. Yeah. So they're like partial vowels.
Upaswaras or something.
Yeah, something. And so there's really 14 plus 2, which relate to the 14 lokas plus your 2 nostrils. Which is where the prana gets into all those 14 lokas anyway. So there's actually 14 here with 2 more hidden inside. Okay, art of interpretation. Different astrologers will give different readings of the same chart. And some people, and I hear it all the time, they're like, oh, astrology's not real because so-and-so said this about my chart, so-and-so said that about my chart. And if you go to a doctor, for the same problem the person has, the doctors are giving different medicines, saying that there's different problems. I was even just talking about the lump on my dad's arm. The one guy was a surgeon, he wanted to operate on it. The other guy was a dermatologist, he wanted to give my dad some cream. And the other guy was a general practitioner, he just stuck a needle in it and sucked the stuff out and, it was over. So 3 doctors had 3 different, up for a little bump on the arm. 3 different ways of looking at it and interpreting it and ready to cure it. So to say that astrologers are interpreting something different, I mean, we're all human. So there is going to be differences in interpretation. There'll be some similarity, but there'll also be some differences. Now, how good the reading is, there's a karmic bond between you and the astrologer. And you have the karma to have good advice, or you have the karma to have bad advice. And so you're going to be attracted to an astrologer that's of a relative order who's going to give the information that it's your karma to receive. So when you're looking at someone's chart and you're saying something, just know that it's your karma to be sharing that information with them, and it's their karma to be receiving that information. Can I push pause for a second?